She is. What's going on? How are you? Good to see you.
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We're figuring this out here.
Well, we're still trying to figure out, but now see, I'm echoing again. So let me just turn my phone all the way down. All right.
Yep.
It's good to see you. So welcome back. And last week, right? We talked a lot about what did we talk about last week? First of all, how was your week? Did you have a
You
good week?
know, it's been a good week. It's hard to believe that we only have 1 week left of school already. The countdown is on. Kids are getting anxious for summer. I think teachers are getting anxious for summer too, but yeah, it's a little bit bittersweet. I always struggle because my fifth graders go on to sixth grade, so it's always a little bit sad at the end of the year. Don't like giving my babies up to another teacher.
I hear you. And the finish line is in sight. And I keep saying that, it's viewable now. And this is the chance, right? We right now have the opportunity to decide how we're going to be remembered. And I'll tell you, like for me, this time of year, that was always my thought process. My thought process was always, when it's all said and done, how are these kids going to remember me? And what's really cool is every one of us has a chance right now to define what that's going to look like, which is cool. It's exciting. And even if we've struggled with a kid or two this year, we can still make it right.
Yep, there's still opportunity 100%. Even if it's only 1 or 2 days, we have a chance to end the year on a good note. And that's kind of what we talked about last time too, right? Is like thinking about how we're going to be remembered, how kids are going to remember us, what kind of impression we left on those kids when they leave us.
We were talking before we came on a little bit about power struggles. And, I think this is a time of year where some kids are good at testing us. And it's critical right now that we remember that, the behavior is always the solution that the kid is choosing to the problem, and to really make sure that we look beyond it, which we did talk about last week, but really trying to prevent, and spending extra time and going above and beyond. What was cool is we got a bunch of questions. I know you got a bunch of questions last week. Do you want to take a couple of them?
Yeah. So, the reason that we kind of wanted to dig into power struggles is because it's the end of the year. Everybody's kind of burning out. People are feistier. We have a shorter fuse for a lot of things that are happening. And so when kids are also getting burnt out and they're not always as willing to jump into whatever they're supposed to be doing, it's a little bit frustrating for teachers, And then what's even more frustrating for so many teachers is that when a teacher asks them to do something, a kid says no. And then you're engaging in this power struggle, and the teacher doesn't want to look embarrassed in front of other students. They don't want to look like they don't have control over their classroom. And so there's kind of this like dichotomous relationship where they don't really know what to do and how to move forward. And so I had put up a post on Instagram just kind of asking, what are the biggest challenges in regards to power struggles, and kind of, what you needed support with. And so we are going to answer some of those, but we're also asking if you guys have more things that you want addressed in regards to power struggles. Go ahead and put those in the comments.
Yeah,
well.
And John, put the question up that was asked earlier, because it's a good one. And it was, when any tips, for when students make a sad choice and get a consequence. It says go to the think spot, but refuse to go. Straight up tell me no. And you see defiance there, right? And anytime defiance is going on, to me, it's really two things, right? It's a kid who's often looking to feel power and control in their life. They want to feel powerful. They want to feel in charge. Leave that question up for a second, real quick. It's a go. I want to look at it while we're talking about it, if you don't mind. But so it's the can you put that back up real quick? Awesome. I just want to see it real fast. There it is. Okay. So any tips when students make a sad choice and get a consequence? I just want to real quick talk about consequence. For me, I consequences and homework kind of fall in the same boat for me. And what that is I use both of them, but I don't really care about either one of them. To me, a consequence should literally be nothing more than a vehicle to a destination. The destination is not negotiable, right? So we're going to get you to stop calling people names, but how we get there, it doesn't really matter. And giving a kid a choice right there, it can absolutely be helpful. Go ahead. I saw you jumping in.
Yeah. So essentially, this question, if we can pull it back up again.
Yeah, leave the question up, John. Thanks,
there's a lot of components that go along with this question that can kind of be broken down. And I think the first one is, kind of addressing what that think spot is for to begin with. So I think the beginning of the question, let me see here. It said, any tips for when a student makes a sad choice and gets a consequence, and their consequence is to go to the think spot. So anytime a student makes a sad choice, whatever that might be, it must not be, doing whatever they're supposed to. Maybe it's drawing on their desk. Maybe it is they're just not ready to learn. They're too fidgety, whatever it is. They need to go to a think spot to get ready to go back to whatever they're doing. So maybe rather than looking at it as like this is something bad for the student, it's a spot where they can kind of reset. It's a spot where they can get their mind ready. They can kind of get focused. They can reset their body. So for so many of our kids, we notice it's really, really challenging to focus on a task for a long period of time. And quite honestly, as a teacher, sometimes just going for a little walk, walking to a different space in my classroom, doing something as simple as like a jumping jack or a yoga pose can kind of reset my mind.
Right.
And so I think even just talking with the student about what the purpose of that spot is, and not necessarily focusing on the fact that it's a consequence, but maybe that it's a spot that can help this kid be more successful in what they need to do. Like, hey, buddy, you know what? I can tell right now it's a little bit more challenging for you to focus. How are you feeling right now? Kind of involving them in that conversation. Say, why don't we go check out this spot and see if we can get something that makes our body feel more ready?
Right.
And then they can come up with ideas that might help them even then too.
Yep. And what I was gonna say is like, don't focus on the spot, right? Like, so it doesn't really matter if the kid goes to the predetermined spot. What matters is that they stop calling people names. What matters is that they stop becoming inappropriate. And that's what you really want to say to the, what you really want to say to the kid. Just if John, well, I'll tell you I just want to look at that question. But so what losing my train of thought. You ever do that? Have you ever been in the middle of a lesson and you totally forget what you were talking about? Have you ever done that? And the worst 100%. Thing is, right. And the worst thing is when you look at your class and you're like, guys, where was I? And every kid's like, no clue, right? I wasn't listening. I know it happens frequently, right? But so instead of focusing on the spot, right, you're giving him the option to tell you no. And we don't want to give kids the option to tell us no. So what I would say to the kid is, listen, buddy, I don't really care if you go to the think spot. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care if you go to the think spot. I don't care if you sit at your desk. I don't care if you do a handstand in the corner. What I care about is that we figure out a way for you to stop calling people names. How are we going to do that together? Let's figure that out together and bring the kid in the mix of helping you figure it out, right? Again, and you can ask the kid, like, what do you think it's going to take, right? What's it going to take? The first 5 things I've tried this year haven't worked. Do you have any ideas for me? And when you ask them, you're involving them. And that's the other part of this, right? The prevention part, which is, bringing the kid in the mix, right? Saying to the kid, listen, buddy, like, do you think we should read this book, or this book? Hey, come here. Like, these guys listen to you. They don't often listen to me, right? So you think you could help get them quiet? What do you think? Where you're bringing the kid in the mix, and getting help, having them become really your helper. I think I might have talked about this a little bit last week, right? The concept of, I'm the head coach, but that kid's going to be my first assistant, and I'm going to bring them on my side. I'm going to get them right with me, and then I'm going to kind of run things through them and making the kid a part of what we do, because the real need, the real issue is the lack of feeling of power and control. And that comes from the home life, right? That comes from when, a lot of times it's, the kid feels like they're in complete control at home. And that's because some of our kids, right, they have no parental supervision. There's they're up till all hours of the night. They play video games 24/7. They're always on their phone. And so in their mind, they're in charge, they're in control. And then they come to school and the teacher's trying to take it from them, right? Teacher's saying, no, you got to stop talking and you got to line up. And then they're telling you when to eat and where to go and how to walk. And this kid's like, yo, I got this power in my life at home, right? I'm holding on to this and you're trying to take it from me and I'm going to fight you for it. And so you got kids that are trying to keep a grasp of, the little bit that they have left of control in their life. And so if you can make the focal point, really trying to make a kid feel power and control in as many different ways as possible, I think this kid will become helped a lot.
And I think that looks different for all ages, right? So just because I know kind of where this question came from, I know that this student that they're talking about here is in kindergarten. So I would say what Brian was talking about is great, even for, some first graders, maybe even some kindergartners, maybe second, third, fourth, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, all the way up. All of those things can help in, involving them in the process, helping them kind of think of different strategies that they can use. Now, if it's younger and you're like a preschool teacher or you're a kindergarten teacher and you're like, man, I want to involve them in choice, but do they really even know what's good for their body? I would say involve them in different things, trying different things, try yoga poses, try different sensory strategies, use kinetic sand, use beats, use body socks, try all these different things, try weighted lap pads. You can try different exercises, talk to your OT to see if they have any different suggestions. I'd say trying different strategies to see how that kind of helps the kiddo. Maybe it's a running break, maybe it's something as simple as drawing or playing with like a stretchy fidget. Have them get to try all these different things. Now, how do you help them when they actually need to make a choice and use this when they are, in that moment? For a lot of kiddos that are younger, having something as simple as a choice board. So having a choice board with pictures of, let's say, beats, kinetic sand, maybe it's a weighted lap pad, a picture of someone running, and like a beanbag, maybe a resting break. Have them look at all those pictures and they can simply take it off and stick it on there. So that even works for your like nonverbal kiddos, for your kiddos that maybe can't remember the words that they need to use. They look at that little chart and they just move it right over. So this can work. You can give choice for all ages. It just looks a little bit different depending on the age, right?
No question. And, again, we always have to look at the foundation. It's always a part of it. And sometimes it sounds redundant. I get it. But the foundation is what the most important. You can't build the kitchen. You can't build the beautiful bathroom and the beautiful bedroom until you've laid the foundation. And the foundation is always connection. It's never not connection. It's always going a little bit above and beyond. It's always doing a little bit more. It's spending a little bit of extra time with that kid. It's pulling that kid out of lunch and having some one-on-one lunches with the kid where you're literally just talking about the world and about life and about, helping them through their world and finding out about their home life and saying to the kid, hey, listen, like, summer's coming up and, it seems like all of us teachers, we're really excited, and we are excited. But I know for you, that might not be the most exciting thing, and that might not be the best thing. And what do you have going on this summer, and where are you going to be, and who are you staying with? Oh, you're at your dad's? Okay, you go to your dad's on Wednesdays. Got it. And who's at your dad? Okay, he's got a girlfriend. Understood. And what happens? Oh, okay. So are they like drinking? You could smell it. I've got it. And so like, do you have a lock that you can lock? Oh, you don't. What about headphones? Can we get you some of those? Right? Like where you're literally working through the thing with the kid, and making it where you're just, you're making it where it's all about the connection, and it's about, I'm gonna get so close to this kid. I'm gonna make this kid care so much about me that he wouldn't dare say no to me. And that's because of what I've built with him. And, I'm not saying this teacher didn't do that or hasn't tried to do that. I'm saying that, sometimes to reach kids that no one else reaches, we have to do things other people don't do. I was on with a group yesterday and we were talking about a suspended kid. And a teacher said to me, well, what do I do with this kid when he comes back? And my response was, well, what have you done while he's been gone? Right? Like he's been gone. Have you called him at home and said, hey, Johnny, I miss you, buddy. Like you're an important part of my class. And or if I don't teach you, you're an important part of my school. And I want to let you know that at least one person here will miss you while you're gone. If for some reason you don't want to be crazy, you don't want to be further behind when you come back, you can call me and let me know. And if your parent or guardian is home, I'll bring work to your house. If they stay, I might even do and help you do it. Right? Like if not, no big deal. Just want to let you know how much I care. Have a good day. Click. Like having that quick call. And, now you come back, that kid comes back from suspension, and he's got his hat on in the hall. And one teacher tells him to take the hat off and he's going to tell him where you can put the hat. The other teacher says, take the hat off. And he's going to say, there you go. Sorry, ma'am. Sorry, sir. But what a lot of people, I think, don't seem to understand is that it's not really about the hat, right? It's not about the hat. It's about last week when I was in trouble, one of you went like this. And the other of you went like this, get up, right? Get up. And the truth is, like, no matter how many times the kid gets knocked down in this world, you only have to stay up once. And that's the good news about the world. And that's the great news about a lot of our kids who make mistakes, and screw up and struggle in school. You only have to stay up once. And that's why it's worth it, right? That's why what we do is worth it, because a kid can get knocked down or fall down 50 times or 52 times. But the 53rd, right? That could be the one where their life is changed. And if you're on the side of holding their elbow, right? When they got knocked and you're helping them up, if you're the one and you get to watch that kid walk across the stage or, accomplish a task, that other people said couldn't be done, or that the kid didn't believe could be done. And then you watch it happen, and the payoff is incredible, right? That's why we really do this job, it are for those moments. And I will preach. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jamie. Yeah. Tag somebody, you guys, if you're enjoying this, tag somebody right now in the comments that you think should be listening or you want to listen with you. Let's build the comments up a little bit. Yes.
Yeah. And, bouncing off of that, Brian, a little bit, I had a situation a while back where one of my kiddos came in and they were doing some work that the student could totally do, right? It was something that the student could complete without a doubt. It was where it needed to be. And this kid that day just couldn't do it, like total meltdown. What it looked like to probably other people was that it was a tantrum. This kid didn't want to do it, was just trying to get out of work, right? So the kid has a certain, process in place where we follow the behavior plan. They take a calm down break and we kind of talk about it. And it was just one of those things where the kid was kind of arguing with me, like, I can't do that. This is too hard, whatever. And I'm thinking, yeah, you can do this. This is totally where you're at. You 100% can do this. And I just kind of got down at his level and I was sitting by him and I said, what is really going on? I'm like, man, buddy, you can do this. What is happening? And all of a sudden the kid totally broke down. They had told me that they can't do it because all they're thinking about is what was happening at home. There was a ton of stuff going on at home. And the kid said, I felt scared. I didn't know what was happening. I couldn't talk to my mom. I couldn't talk to my dad. And I felt very, very scared. And so all of these overwhelming emotions were leading to the kid not being able to do this activity, right? So one of those things where do I get in the power struggle and force this kid to do it? And we're constantly battling and not talking it through. Or do I give this kid a chance to kind of say what's going on? It ended up leading to a conversation where I said, you know what? One thing that I want you to know is I can't control what's going on at your house, but you know what I can promise you is that I know right now you're not going on to middle school quite yet. But when you go to middle school and Miss Chyna is no longer your teacher, you're going to have Miss Chyna's phone number. And if there comes a time where you're scared and you don't know what to do, you are always going to have somebody there that is going to help you through that.
What was going on? What was going on with that kid?
There was just a lot of stuff going on at home as far as
you've told me some stories of some of your kids. And some of the stuff that you've seen and that you literally with your students, I don't think people it's hard to even comprehend it.
Yeah. There was drugs and alcohol at the house is what it sounded like. Loud, just what kids say, loud music with a lot of swear words. Tons of people that they didn't know, tons of strangers that they didn't know. They didn't get to eat that weekend. So all of those things are kind of contributing to what's stressing them out. I'm like, man, did you have breakfast this morning? Did you get a snack? Let's go make this, let's do that. And it's just all of these things contributed to them not being able to think about a simple activity. But to what so many probably thought, man, this kid's just trying to get out of this. Sometimes it just takes those little conversations to kind of let kids open up,
Yeah. HALT, right? The acronym HALT, which stands for hungry, angry, lonely, tired. I learned that from Leah Kovacevich, who's an amazing kindergarten teacher in Iowa. And she was on my podcast and she talked about anytime that you have a kid who's super upset or melting down or having a tantrum, look at one of those four things. They're probably hungry, they're angry, they're lonely, and they're tired. And I'll tell you that this one works with my own children. Anytime my son, my 9-year-old, who he'll get in a mood after school a lot of times, and you can see it. You can see it in his eyes. Like he's either exhausted, he's hungry, right? He's had a long day, and he's and I think all of us, us when we feel these. And, you know, it's another example of looking beyond the behavior and really focusing on, and a lot of times, like my son will have an attitude or he'll do something, you know, and I'll just look at him and just be like, which one is it? And usually he's like all four or three of them, you know, he'll oftentimes the only one that he doesn't feel is lonely. Oh, I'll definitely, I didn't even see you. So I'm getting my friend Christy Stalter, who's amazing. She's a elementary school teacher. She said, let me join your live on Instagram. Where are you? So go ahead and hit the join button. Where I got to find you. Where are you? She's great. Anyway, go ahead. Keep talking.
Okay, well, while you're working on that, I was just going to say another little thing that I think is so important is sometimes, you know, we're talking about power struggles right now. And so I had another situation literally happen today where this kid had, you know, kind of was starting to have a meltdown, very, very emotional about something. You know, they had taken their break that they had earned. They'd taken this break, you know, they worked so hard to earn a 15-minute break to get time to do a preferred choice. But then something right before that frustrated the student. So the whole time that they're in Miss Chyna's room to take this calm down break or this earned break, they're frustrated. So they're not actually taking their break. And so it was one of those things where I had the conversation. I said, you know, well, this was your 15 minutes to take your preferred break. So you're not going to get that break again. And the kid totally had a meltdown, right? They were like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that if I was frustrated.
What does that mean, by the way, when you say totally had a meltdown? What does that actually look like? I'm just curious.
Like crying and yelling and starting to get somewhat verbally abusive, you know, not saying super respectful things, quite disrespectful, saying mean things, kind of like hitting heads on the back of different things, pounding, you know, just a little bit of everything. And so this kid was really, really worked up. You know, I didn't know that. You didn't tell me that. And I could have sat there and I could have argued. I could have said, you know, that's just how it is. You can't have that. And I said, you know what? We might not have ever had something like this happen, have we? And he's like, no, we haven't had something like this happen. I said, I understand why you'd be frustrated. You didn't know that if you were frustrated and you didn't tell me that you would still be considered taking your break, right? And so essentially we ended up talking it through and we decided that we would do half. We'd meet halfway. So we'd say 7.5 minutes we're not going to get because we kind of wasted that time. But since we didn't know, we still get 7.5 minutes to do this. And it was a compromise. I gave in, he gave in. And so it was just a conversation that had to be had. But that was a power struggle that I could have engaged in that literally wouldn't have gone anywhere. I mean, it would have been 2 hours of a total meltdown that we wouldn't have been able to get back on track. And sometimes it's okay as a teacher to be like, hey, we haven't talked about it, have we? A lot of times teachers are the ones that forget to share things with kids, like certain procedures or certain rules that we have to follow. And then when the kid gets upset, we expect them to just kind of roll with it. And that's not always going to happen. We have to be open and honest about those things as well.
No question. And you said the word negotiate, right? Like you like meet in the middle. And that's a really important thing and a really important concept, I think, for a lot of us. And it's the thought is always start a little bit higher and be willing to negotiate, you know, and I remember frequently doing that with kids where, you know, secretly, like between us, like I'd want them to do 10 problems, you know? And so I'd say, all right, everybody, 1 through 20, I'll see all of them tomorrow. Have a good night. Yeah. And then of course they complain, I don't want to do 20. That's so many. Why? Right? Okay. Chill. Like, how many do y'all think you should have to do? How many do you want to do? And of course, none, you know, we don't want to do any. Now, right now we're in this. Okay, listen. And here's my response, by the way, anytime a kid says none. When a kid says none, I say, no, I set the limit first, right? I just want to be clear, none's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. And then the minute I'm done setting the limit, I blame everybody else. I mean, I wish it could happen. Listen, I would love to give you, do you understand how much easier my life would be if I gave you none? I mean, I'd have no papers to correct. I'd have no homework to grade. I would have no time. I mean, my life, I get paid the same, right? I would love to give you none, except here's the problem. Like I got these things called administrators and I got bosses and I got people, your parents are going to be, the people are going to be annoyed. Nope. Like I got a mortgage and I got a car and I got things I got to pay and none's not going to happen. And by the way, if you say none again, we're not even going to continue this conversation. I could live with 15. What do y'all think about that? No. We want 5. All right. Listen. Are you listening? Yeah, we're listening, Mr. Mendler. I wanted 20, you wanted none. I wanted 15, you wanted 5. I'll live with 10. That's only because I'm probably the coolest teacher that any of you all have ever had in your entire life. So don't forget to tell, and you know, do me a favor, do the 10 easiest on the page. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Have a good day, right? You know, and look at what I did, right? I got you to believe. It's, you know, who does this well is stores, right? Like, my wife, who might be watching this, no disrespect, but how do you all, when you all get always the best deal every time you go to a shoe store, you have to buy the shoes? Like, they put them on. No, you don't understand. No, what happens is they start high, right? So you go to the store and it says $69.99. Then they take a red pen and they put a line through it, right? And they write $31.99. And then we're like, oh, we got a good deal. Let's tell our friends and let's go back tomorrow. It's the same concept with kids, right? Mm-hmm. You get them to believe that they're getting that deal, that they're making an agreement or an arrangement, and it's really what you wanted in the first place, but you just start a little bit higher. It's a fantastic technique. And the other thing that I love about it is it's a great thing for life. Like I want my kids in life to know how to negotiate. You know, I want my kids to know how to not always settle for the first thing that comes their way, and to push a little bit for what they want. And, you know, if you're going to be a salesman, if you're going to be a lawyer, like, these are all skills that you're going to take into the world with you. And what better thing than to start teaching that in school?
I just have to comment on this. I think it's so funny that you said, because I'm the coolest teacher out there. Because I think we kind of all have those little statements that we say, right? So when my kids are asking something and they're like really trying to get something and we're kind of compromising, we finally figure it out. And I said, you know why I did that? Because I really like you. I really like having you in my class. And I say that to every single kid. I'll say it to every single one of them, because honestly, I really do like having them in their class, but it really kind of amps them up a little bit too when you tell them something like that as well. So I just thought that was kind of funny.
7 words. Those are 7 words that could change a kid's life. I have a slide in my presentation that says 7 words that could change a kid's life. And the 7 words are, I love having you in my class. Right. And I mean, I don't think there's any better words, and that's whatever class, right? It's, well, I don't care if you're teaching, like you said earlier, yoga, or you're teaching, right? The teachers that are excited to have you, you know, that look forward to you, that see you as a challenge versus an annoyance, right? Because there's 2 ways to view a kid, right? You can view the same kid as a defiant, disruptive pain in the you-know-what. You could also look at that same kid and be like, yes, like, I get to work with this kid this year. Like, look at the potential that he has, and look at the abilities that kid has. And this is so cool. And you know what? The only direction I could go is up. I mean, we're already starting kind of at the bottom here. So this is going to be a fun year, right? I'm going to get to try out lots of new things. And, you know, looking at it with that light often changes our own mindset. And that's really the key with hard kids, right? The key with hard kids is, how do we change us? And it's you know, I think I said it last week. It was interesting. We got the question with the word consequence in it, right? Because again, what is the mindset there, right? The mindset is, the kid misbehaved, the kid had a meltdown, the kid was inappropriate. Let's give the kid a consequence, meaning let's change the kid, right? Let's make the kid have to do something different. And remember, the only person that we control is ourselves. We don't control anybody else. And so, yes, it's nice to give the kids strategies, but we also have to look internally. And that's where the foundation of my answer was, right? When I said spending a little bit of extra time, right? Go pulling the kid out of lunch, or dropping them back out of specials and saying, hey, buddy, like, I know you're going to PE, but I'm going to take you back for like 5 minutes because I want to walk around and get to know you a little better, or play a game with you, right, in the class, one-on-one, or work on your math facts, or whatever. Like, whatever the thing is that you do, it doesn't matter what the thing is. That's the cool thing, is it doesn't matter what it is. It's about the time spent, you know, and what that really is me changing me. And that's the key. The key to behavior is always me adjusting myself versus trying to adjust the kid.
And sometimes that means like not always doing what we thought we were going to do, right? So I had a question that was just on one of my posts on Instagram today that had said something along the lines of, what if you give a student a choice? So if you say, okay, are you going to start with number 1 or number 5? Because if you remember last week, we talked a lot about not necessarily using yes or no questions. So are you going to start your work? If you give them the option to say yes or no, guess what? They can say no. It's okay for them to say no. But then what do you do when they say no, right? So we're talking more about choice language, giving them choice so they have control, but kind of giving them choices that push them to kind of get started on their work, right? So they still have that power and control piece. So if you say, are you going to start with number 1? Or are you going to start with number 5? And the student says, I'm not going to do any of them. You know, what do you do then? Do you engage in the power struggle? Do you just let them not do it? Do you have a consequence? What does that look like? And I think it can look different in so many ways. If that happened with a kiddo in my room, I'd say, oh, you know what? I'm going to start on number 4 for you. And we'll see if you can do number 5. Oh, number 4. Gosh, I can't remember. 4 times 7. Oh, what do I do again? Double the double. What's double is 7? And they're like, oh, it's 14. I'm like, okay. And then I double 14. Oh, it's 28. They're doing the problem.
Right.
And I'm just guiding them to do it.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, do you want to write that down for me? They'll write it down. Okay, why don't you try number 5 and I'll come back. Right. So you kind of sneakily get them on there, kind of get them started. Sometimes I'll actually say, how about I do number 1 and you do number 2? Okay, I'm going to do number 1. Oh, here it is, number 2. Or like you said, there's a lot of other things you can do as well. Give them a ton of problems on there. Oh, you don't want to do number 1 or number 5? Guess what? That doesn't matter.
Right.
You can pick just 5 on there. Why don't you pick 5 and get started, and then I'll come check on you. Yeah. There's other things too. If you have those kids that are super oppositional, right? And they're like, I'm not doing any of it. You can't make me. Sometimes you have to have a natural consequence.
Correct.
Maybe it's something as simple as, go ahead.
No, what I was going to say is, so the phrase, so there's 3 phrases in education that I kind of have a canned answer for, right? Because they're so common, right? They happen so often. They're so prevalent and prominent, and you can't make me is one of them, right? Anytime a kid says to me, and you said, right, you can't make me, they're right. The thing is, the minute a kid says that, they're right. I can't, right? And that's what I say to the kid. I look at him and I say, you know what? No question. You're right. You're actually right. And I apologize for trying because I can't make you. Only you can make yourself. Good luck trying. And I want you to know how much I believe in you. And I'll be here right along the way if you got any questions. But I'm pretty sure you can make yourself. Let's see if you can. And then I walk away, right? And see what happens. But either way, whatever happens, even if the kid doesn't do anything, well, he wasn't doing anything before, and at least I didn't get hooked, right? That's the kid throwing out the hook and trying to reel me into a power struggle, and I'm not biting. Don't be that fish that's like, oh, shoot, right? And next thing you know, the kid's got you going back and forth with them. And so that's, you can't make me. The other one is what are the other phrases? So you can't make me, oh shoot, I'm drawing a blank. I'll think of them. How do you apply these things without people being firm is fine. So somebody said on Facebook, how do you apply these things without people thinking you are not firm? You can be firm. Like, firm is good. There just has to be love within the firm, right? Like, it's the 2 L's. It's love and limits. Like, limits are important. Knock it off. Cut it out. Enough is enough. Stop. By the way, where did you get those earrings? I love those earrings. They look so good on you. Got to wear earrings like that more often. But enough with the behavior. You hear me? Great earrings, though, right? Notice what I'm doing, right? I'm being firm. I'm saying enough is enough. But within the limits, I'm showing you love. And that's the piece, right? Criticism. I learned this from an administrator once. I might have talked about this last week. Did I talk about this? The best staff meeting that I ever had that lasted 5 minutes, where she had the word criticism on the board. Did I tell you about this? I've done so many of these.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So the best staff, so real quick story, the best staff meeting that I ever had, right? It lasted 5 minutes, right? And so we're all sitting in there, and my principal walks in, and she didn't even say hello, right? She just looks at us all and she goes, here's the deal. You all listening? And we were like, yeah. She goes, good. And she points to her screen, right? She had a screen in the front, and she had the word criticism in big block letters, right? And she looked at us, and she pointed to that word, and she said, do y'all see that word? And we said, yeah. She goes, that word matters. You must be willing to criticize kids. If you're unwilling to criticize kids, they will never get better. By the way, you all, and she points to us, must be willing to accept criticism. If you are unwilling to accept criticism, you will never get better. Then she pushed a button on her screen, and the word compliment came flying in all around the word criticism. And she pointed us all and she goes, but don't you dare ever forget that criticism in the world on its own, left unaccompanied by compliment, is not criticism, it's abuse. That's it. Meeting's over. And she walked out and we were all sitting there like, holy sugar. And I'm still sitting here many years later reciting that line, right? You have no idea how many times with my wife, with my family, with my parents, with so many people in my life where I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to compliment them. Why? Because I criticized. And criticism alone doesn't count as criticism, it's abuse. And when you think of it in that way, then anytime you criticize a person or a kid, which I'm not telling you not to do, that's my point. I'm saying it has to be done, but what has to go along with it is the compliment. And try to even go 2 to 1, go two compliments to 1 criticism. Somebody put mic drop on Instagram. Yeah. Did you see the Instagram comment about the person who was my interpreter? So that's really funny. I remember you. So I was doing a session. We were in California and I think it was a student session. And I'm an impossible person to interpret for because I move around the room and I'm all high energy and, and she did an amazing, like being the interpreter for me is like, sometimes I cuss or say a bad word. And then I look at the interpreter. I'm like, don't do that. I'm sorry. Feel bad for that. But anyway, yeah. Really cool.
Oh, funny. And that's something too to kind of consider is like, sometimes you aren't necessarily criticizing, right? You're not criticizing. Sometimes after a kid has a tough day or a tough moment, you sit down with that kid, you say, how do you think things went? And you would not believe the type of criticism they have going on in their head that we don't even say, so sometimes I'll be like, man, how do you think this whole thing went? And I mean, the kid could have done almost everything right. Like, yeah, they got frustrated with math, but when they were frustrated, what did they do? They walked to a calm down spot. Then what did they do? They calmed their body. Then what did they do? They did their work. But if I asked the kid, how do you think it went? They'd be like, it was terrible. I didn't do my math. I got mad about my math. I threw it on the ground. And I sit there and it's just one of those moments where you say, you know what though? Let's think about everything you did right. You were mad. Yeah, but that's okay. You knew that. So you walked to take a calm down break. You then calmed your body on your own. I didn't even have to help. I didn't have to say anything to you. And you calmed your body on your own. And then you know what the best part was? Is you got your work and you did it when you were done. Like you did everything right. So you need to be proud of yourself for everything you do. I think sometimes kids tear themselves apart because they've heard it in so many other places that they don't even recognize all of the amazing things that they've done. So I think even sometimes when you don't give criticism, you have to give all the positives that they're doing. Sometimes kids don't even realize all the amazing things that they're doing while they're doing them.
Yes.
Another thing that go ahead.
No, what I was going to say, like along those lines is I feel like kids are usually a lot harsher on themselves when I am on them. Like when I say to them, I don't know, like what, so, okay, so do you think you should be allowed to go on the field trip? Do you think you should be allowed to attend Fun Friday? Like you tell me how you thought you did for the last half hour. Yeah. And a lot of times they're like, well, no, like I probably shouldn't be allowed to go on the next like 9 field trips. And I'm like, no. Like it wasn't like that. Like you're okay. Like and sometimes they're actually harsher on themselves than I am on them, which is why it's good to ask their opinion and to bring them in the mix. And the other thing is sometimes kids are thinking one way and we see something different. This is a great story. So when I taught 4th grade, I had a kid, I'll never forget this, who, we were sitting kind of like, I was reading them a story and they were sitting on the rug sort of, and this kid, a girl kicked another kid, right? She kicked this kid and I saw it. Like, it was like obvious right in front. And I had decided that she wasn't going to go on the field trip. And I also had a strategy that I learned from a co-teacher called take a shot. And take a shot is a really cool strategy. And it's a strategy where anytime you make a decision for a kid or you give them a grade or anything that they don't agree with, right? So it's something that you do to a kid that a kid doesn't agree with, they're allowed to take a shot to convince you that you're wrong. Okay. And like they could take their shot in my room however they want. So they could write their shot, which by the way, if they wrote it, I would count it as an essay or as as something. They could speak their shot, kind of like your closing argument. If you're going to be a lawyer, you get to have your closing argument and see, right? So this girl comes up to me, right? And I said, you're not going on this field trip. Whatever anybody thinks about this isn't the point, whether I let her go or not. But I said, you're not going to go on the field trip. And she wanted to go and she was annoyed. And she comes up to me and she goes, okay, Mr. Mendler, like, I know you're saying I'm not allowed to go on the field trip, but I actually think I had a really good day. And I was like, how did you have a good day? You kicked someone. And she looked at me and she goes, I know, but just so you know, I was going to kick him 10 times and I only kicked him once. And I said, yeah. And she goes, well, you're like the baseball coach. If a kid was up to bat 10 times in a game and they got 9 hits out of 10 times up, would they had a really good game or a really bad game? And I said, well, they would have had a really good game. She goes, then I had a really good day in class because I was going to kick them 10 times and I only kicked them once. So I was kind of like 9 for 10. I should be allowed to go on the field trip. It was one of the best shots that a kid had ever taken with me, you know, but again, my thought process was I saw one thing, right, with my eyes, but at the same time, in that girl's mind, it was something different. It was in her mind, she had self-control. In her mind, she used strategies to not engage with him multiple times, you know, and if she doesn't tell me that, then I only see it from my own lens, you know?
Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to celebrate those moments, even though it's not exactly the specific desired response that we want, it's still progress, right? So like if we have a kid that's learning to read and they move from a level A to a level B, we are celebrating, right? But sometimes we forget to celebrate the behavioral components just because it's not picture perfect, right? So here's an example. I had a kiddo just a couple of weeks ago who, I mean, is quite a physical kid. Like it is daily we are hitting other kids and it's just totally, we're swearing, we're hitting other kids. And this day, when this kid got frustrated, rather than hitting the kid, clenched their fists and then said the F word, right? So in perspective, you know, before they were saying the F word and hitting the kid, this time they just said the F word and they clenched their fists instead. You know, not picture perfect, but still something to celebrate because now, guess what? There isn't another kid that's hurt from getting hit. So, I mean, everything's kind of perspective. We have to celebrate the small victories. It doesn't always have to be picture perfect to actually, you know, talk with that kid and say, hey, I'm really proud of you. And I did. I said, you know what? We're still working on using other words, but I'm really proud of you for clenching your fist. I saw how mad you were and you didn't hit that kid.
Right. I'm laughing because I'm thinking about this kid that I used to teach named Angel Cruz. So first of all, explain to me why my most disruptive kids are often named Angel, Jesus, and Precious, right? Like you got that name. But Angel was one of my favorite kids that I ever had in my life. But he was a hard kid. And so I got him on my side by challenging him, right? I challenged him and I said, I'm not sure if you can get everybody quiet after lunch. Like I see that you can get them all right. Christy, so here's the thing. So Christy, my friend Christy's trying to join. I can't let you join because then they won't be able to hear you on YouTube and Facebook. So we'll talk and potentially on another one, I'll have you join. Okay. I know you're chomping at the bit. So sorry. But anyway, so one day, right? So he forgets, of course, right? The day that he's supposed to do it, he forgets. And, you know, after lunch, so I'm looking at him and the class is all riled up, right? And he notices me and he's like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to get everybody quiet, right? So at the top of his lungs, right? I mean, as loud as he yells to the whole class, yo, shut up at the top of his lungs, right? So I was like, oh my gosh. Right? And I was like, Angel, get over here. And he goes, what? And I looked at him, I said, good job. He goes, really? I said, yeah, but listen, tomorrow, just yell, shut up, leave the F-bomb out. He's like, all right, Mr. Got you. So the next day he comes in, right? He's like, yo, shut up, right? Then I'm like, all right, good job. Listen, tomorrow it's, yo, please shut up. Right? So the next day he's like, yo, and after about like 4, then it was, yo, please shut up. Thank you, right? Then it was, yo, please. It took us like 3 months to teach Angel how to tell everybody to be quiet appropriately. But what I love, right? Look, sometime, tell me y'all that are watching or listening, tell me that you've never been in your class and wanted to stand in the middle of the room and tell everyone to shut the F up, right? But if we do it, we'll get fired, right? But the kid can do it, right? And he did it, and they listen to him, right? So like, look, what could I say? Hey, that's an inappropriate word. We don't use words like that. Knock it off. I could, right? But instead it was, no, you know what? Good job. Like they needed to be told in a certain way that you could tell them. Now let me reel you in a little bit, right? Let me teach you now off of your beginning. Let me teach you what appropriateness is and how to become appropriate. And, you know, those are the moments, right? Those are the moments with kids where you hook them, right? And once you hook them, it's over. It's over. You can teach them anything you want, right? I have to know as a kid that you care way more about me than about anything you're trying to teach me. right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to care way more about me than about anything you're trying to teach me. And once I know that, then you could teach me anything you want. But when I don't know that, I'm going to get in your way. And that's, that's the foundation. That's the thought.
Also, pro tip for anybody that's sitting there and they're like, man, I have these kids that drop F-bombs and they're swearing every hour of the day, right? Because we know what happens. Especially with younger kids, this is really fun. You can like practice replacement words. So for my kids that are like really hardcore swearers, we actually make a list of words that we're going to use instead. So if they're like, oh, F a lot of the time, we'll think of things that they like. So they might be like, oh, Minecraft or oh, Mickey Mouse. And then it's like a challenge, right? So the next time they're really mad, rather than saying that, I want to hear them say, oh, Minecraft, or, I've heard oh, smelly monkey. Like I've heard so many weird examples that they've thought of, but it's kind of fun. You involve them in that and you're just slowly working on replacing those explicits that can't be said in school to something that's silly. And then eventually to something that's more appropriate. Right. So that's just a little side pro tip.
It's the we don't have a lot of time left, but it's the concept of always teaching, right? It's seeing what's in front of you and just taking it and teaching it. Sometimes I think as educators, we almost over plan. It's like we have so many thoughts of what we're gonna do or what we need to get done. And in education, there's kind of two things that live at the same time. There's what I'm supposed to teach, and then there's what kids need to learn. And for a lot of kids, those two things line up, right? For a lot of kids in good schools where they got good home lives and good parents, what I'm supposed to teach and what they need to learn is the same thing. The problem is with that one kid, it's often coast to coast. In LA, you got what I'm supposed to teach. And in New York, you got what they need to learn. And the teachers are getting caught with you and over in there in North Dakota, right? And you're getting torn in two different directions. And I think it's critical to remember that, it's always best to go with what they need over what you're supposed to. And trust that by giving them what they need, it will lead to what they're supposed to. And sometimes we don't necessarily know what they need. Sometimes you can't plan for certain things that happen, or a kid who didn't eat breakfast, or a kid who doesn't, have clean clothes, or a kid who hasn't taken a shower. And you just see it. And it's like sometimes in a sporting event, you could design a play, but then you got to let your athletic ability take over and just sometimes say whatever with the play. I saw the score, the goal, and I could get to it, and I went. And I think sometimes as a teacher, we hesitate. You know what I mean by that? Like we get so caught up in what we plan to teach over here, right, that we're missing the lessons that the kids are dropping in our lap. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't plan. Like that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is I think it's important to have an eye on our plan, but also an eye on our kids and seeing like, what are they bringing me? What are they bringing me that I might be able to take and turn right into a lesson? And there are usually lessons that kids are bringing, whether it's how they say good morning to each other, or how they greet each other, or how they disagree with each other, right? I remember a big one I used to teach is, man, shut the hell up. No, wait, whoa, time out. Like, when we don't agree with each other, we don't yell at each other, shut the hell up. Like, let's talk about how we can disagree appropriately, right? And you actually go into an entire lesson about that, which can just be so powerful for kids in those moments.
And now more than ever, that's so important with so many kids having been distanced for so long, missing so many opportunities, like as simple as like walking in a lunch line, playing a game at recess. Oh, not being able to play the exact game that you want to play at recess. There's a lot of things that we're missing for like a year, some kids a year and a half. And so those lessons are going to be like key. Literally social emotional learning has to come first. Right. One thing I want to make sure we touch on before we're done tonight is I had a lot of questions about disrespect. So like, what do you do for power struggles that involve a ton of disrespect with students? So that was kind of like an ongoing theme.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So yeah. And, we have about, I would say maybe 5 to 10 minutes left. And look, disrespect, it's one of those words. That's an interesting word because it means different things to different people. Right. And the first thing that I say to everybody is, and I don't mean this rude or disrespectfully, but decide today that 7-year-old people can't disrespect you. Just decide that because you're stronger than that. You're mentally tougher than that, right? A lot of teaching is about mental toughness. It's about, right, in sports, there's two kinds of toughness. There's physical toughness, which we can see with our eyes, but then there's mental toughness, right? And the mentally tougher team often wins. Why? Because they're able to tune out the noise, right? What separates a great athlete? It's their ability to play on the road. It's their ability to play when everybody's screaming at them and when everybody's waving behind the backboard and they're like, yeah, give me the ball, right? And their focus is laser beamed in on what they're there to do, and make that decision, hear things differently, right? Hear what kids are saying, stop listening to how they're saying it. What happens with a lot of kids is their how ruins their what, but their what is often intelligent. And saying to a kid, listen, like, I don't love to be talked to that way. Like, that's fine. Like, it's okay to say that, but always try to build that relationship within it. So listen, I don't love to be talked to that way, but I understand because I get angry and I get frustrated and I get annoyed, kind of like someone else we know, right? And sometimes when I feel those things, I lash out and I say things that I didn't mean to say, and I do things that I didn't mean to do, kind of like someone else we know, right? Right. See how I'm becoming a teammate? Once I become a teammate, then I could become a coach. So that's my thought on it is, and the other thing, the question that I'll get then is people will say, okay, that's fine. Like, I can ignore it or I can walk away from it. But what about all the other kids, right? If all the other kids hear that the teacher say it, are you saying that that's okay? And my response to that is you just got to tell them. So tell the other kids, look at the other kids at some point in the year and say, listen, there's a couple things I want to let you know about how our class is going to work. Unfortunately, some of you in here are going to do and say some rude, nasty, inappropriate, not nice, mean things. I know you are. How do you know, Mr. Mendler? Good question, little 10-year-old. Here's how I know. It happens every single year in my life. I just want to let you know that if and when it happens, and I hope it doesn't, but if and when it does, I will not always be stopping my lesson to deal with it. It doesn't mean I didn't hear it, and it doesn't mean I'm not going to do anything about it. It just means sometimes I think teaching the 10 of you, the 12 of you, the 15 of you, the 30 of you that are not being inappropriate is much more important than stopping for the 1 or 2 of you who are. And what last thing, whatever consequence I choose to give or not to give will be between that student and me and nobody else. Sound good? So notice how I'm telling you ahead of time what's going to happen so that when it happens, I'm like the weatherman that predicted the storm. I saw it coming from a mile away, and now it came, and no one should be surprised by it. And so it gives you an out in that moment.
And I think it's okay to be super real with kids, to say there are some kids in here that have a lot going on. And sometimes, well, some of you might just cry, or, you might say, oh, shoot, other kids might show it in a different way. Just having those real talks with kids is really, really important. And then let's just think about this. So I get that statement so often. What are other kids are going to think? They're going to think that kid doesn't have a consequence. They're going to think that that's just okay. That's acceptable. Let's just think of it this way. If you go to a gas station, right, and the person in front of you walks up and it's a total piece of crap to the person that is checking them out, right? They're like swearing at them. They're like, just really, really disrespectful. Have you ever stood there and been like, oh, that's totally acceptable. I'm going to treat the cashier just like that? No, we are smarter than that. And kids are smarter than that too. It's not like monkey see, monkey do for every situation. And so I think we just need to remember that just because they see it once doesn't mean they think it's socially acceptable. Kids are so much smarter than we give them credit for. You know what I mean? It's so interesting. And the thing with disrespect that I kind of wanted to touch on as well is I think disrespect for adults is irritating, right? So when a kid is saying something to you that you don't want them to say, it's irritating. It kind of gets under your skin. You're like, I don't deserve to be talked to like that. But you just have to remember that that kid is responding because they can't handle something. They don't have the skills to handle something that is occurring in their life, right? And as a teacher, I will say this sometimes. Sometimes I'll tell my kids, I said, you know what? I want to talk to you, but I'm going to wait until we have a calm voice. Okay. And I won't engage, and they'll be swearing at me. They'll be saying other things, and I'll wait until they're ready. Because me talking to a kid that's trying to engage in a power struggle when they're not de-escalated, when they're not in a rational mindset, is going to go nowhere, right? Sometimes kids just need space. Maybe that's all they need to continue and just kind of calm down so you can have more of a rational conversation. And then it's okay to have a conversation. I just had a conversation with a kid like this last week. I just said, you know what? I want you to know that I will never, ever talk to you like you talked to me today. And I understand that you were frustrated, but when you were talking to me like that, I'm going to give you some space until you're ready to talk to me with a kind voice.
Right.
Okay, so just know that I'm not ignoring you. I still care about you, but I'm just going to give you some space until you're ready. And normally when they're in that rational mindset, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You know, Miss Chyna's never talked to me like that. So, you know, I'm going to try my best next time when I do that. So it's okay to have conversations like that.
Totally, totally. Well, listen, I'm tired and I appreciate it. This is always fun. So I love this. I hope you enjoy it as well. Listen, for all of you that are listening, make sure, if you don't mind, just tag somebody, help spread the word. Let us know your comments, your feedback, your thoughts. We would love to hear it. Any last words from you?
No, I don't think so. It was fun once again. I'm not sure. Are we coming on next Thursday again? Or are we doing 2 weeks? It's hard to know.
Who knows? Like, let's just kind of see. Let's just kind of see. You know, we'll see, and we'll see how we feel. But yeah, like you know, and I love this. Like, I love talking. You see this, right? It's you and I are kind of like you say something, and I'm like, yeah, and then I thought this, I know, and then I thought that, and then I know, and it can go all day, right? So you know, I love this, and we'll see. But yeah, you know, it's really fun for me, and I appreciate you and all the work that you're doing, and keep up the good work.
Yeah. And just for anyone that's watching, please know that any questions that come to us, we love having those just because we can kind of answer them in the next ones to come as well. So they're always welcome. Send them in DMs, send them in comments, whatever works.
Yes. Thank you. All right, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. We'll be back same time next week or in 2 weeks. Until then, we say peace. We're out of here.